Now we have 41 volunteers. We do have several membership levels because not all members can do the full membership, which right now is 48 hours a month plus 1 weekend shift. So they essentially they sign up for a shift, you're in the same shift every week. It's like a Thursday night crew, you run every Thursday night with the same crew. Then on the weekends, we kind of sign up on your availability so you get to run with some other people you may not run with every week. We have 2 alternate members, so they kind of do an every other week type of thing. We're 24 hours a month plus the weekend shift. Sublist members, they're people who can't really commit to a set shift, so they have to do 24 hours a month. One of those 12-hour shifts is usually a weekend. Weekends are our hardest to fill, so we have all of our membership have to do weekends. Currently 5 junior members. This program was started years before I even started here. Members who are 16 to 18 years old, so they come from the high schools. They can run 4 hours. Usually, most of them do night shifts just with school. Some of them, we do have one here today who came in at like 2 and he runs until 6. The night members only run until 10. So they do 6 to 10, and then they also do a weekend shift, and that weekend shift they can do a full 12 hours. But we obviously don't want them out with school nights past 10 if we can help it. So, and that, we used to have 1 or 2 members a year. We've been having like 4 to 6 members each year with that, so that's definitely increased. And a lot of our junior members have gone on to healthcare careers, nursing, PAs, doctors, full-time fire, PMS.
When do they usually start? 16, 17, 18?
Usually 16. I think by 16 they kind of know that's what they want to do. We've had some that have started at 17. Our 5 that we have now are all actually, I think, graduating this year, and we may have 1 that's still going to be. So they'll become full members once they graduate and become turn 18. 6 of our volunteers are currently on leave of absence. We have educational leaves, so if they're away at school, they come back around with us in the summer and during school breaks. And we actually do have somebody out on military leave right now, and then personal leaves, whatever they need to take. 5 career members, including myself. All 5 of us are paramedics. We also currently have 5 per diem members who kind of help fill open shifts as we get them. Right now we have 3 paramedics and 2 that are advanced EMTs.
How many of these members are they all just for Colchester, or do they also belong to other squads?
Some of them do other squads. We don't see it as much as we used to, just with the time commitments and everything. We're kind of limited in what they can give, but some do run in multiple squads. But usually you'll see they may volunteer with us, and maybe per diem hired as somebody else, and that way they can kind of get paid for it, but still continue to volunteer. So it depends. Like our per diem members are actually the 3 paramedics are ColShowcaseRescue full-time members, and then the 2 AEMTs we have, one of them works full-time for Shelburne Rescue, and the other one works for American Fire. So it just gives them a little extra. So levels of licensure that we have now, they actually just changed this within like the last year. So it used to be EMT basic, now they're just EMT. That's there's also a first responder level, which is an EMR, emergency medical responder. We don't have any currently, so I didn't really put it in here. But we do have several EMTs, and this just kind of gives a little bit of the medications and stuff they can give. 110 hours of training just to get the initial certification. So they have to go through a program. It's usually, they line up with the semester of the UVM, so it's a full semester class, usually 2 evenings a week, and then some Saturday classes and stuff to get through that program.
How does that line up for like a nurse or something like that? If you are an LPN or an RN or something like that, would you fall into one of these categories, or would you have to duplicate one?
You have to take because they're completely different. Some you can challenge the paramedic if you are a nurse or a PA. You can challenge to be a paramedic, but you still have to take the testing and stuff and just go through the class.
So, Amy, do they have to get that training in order to ride with you guys, or when they apply to you, will you help them with that, or do you pay for that?
We do. We get some people who are already trained that come. We get some who are not. We will take them on. We give them their CPR certification, and then they can start running with those in the ambulance. We do like to have them run at least for a few months with us to get a feel of what it's like. And then we usually sponsor them to take a class. And I will tell you, the EMT class right now is $500 a person. The AEMT class is $1,000. So they're pretty pricey classes we're putting people through. But so we do like to have them run a little bit. Once they get their EMT, we'd like them to run for about a year to get those skills really solid before they go on to the advanced EMT class, because the advanced is definitely more advanced than it used to be. So they have to go through another 120 hours of that class to become an advanced EMT. So it's kind of
What I was wondering is, these people, the 41 are volunteers, so you don't pay them. But I just try to wonder what other benefits people get by working.
We do pay for the classes. Once they're on probation, so they run with us for 6 months, we'll pay for their class. Usually we kind of have them commit another year for us, so that way they're not just taking the class and leaving, because they are getting more expensive. So we're trying to make sure we have a little bit of a commitment from people.
Is that like a contract, or you just?
Yeah, I mean, they sign something that says they're going to stay. Obviously, if something happens likewise and they have to leave, we may not hold them to that or anything, but yeah, we do like a little bit of a commitment. So yeah, the advanced EMT, just a little more advanced assessment, a few more medications and stuff they can give, and obviously the extra another 120 hours. After that, most of our volunteers are EMT, AMT. We do have a couple who are paramedic, but they came to us already with that certification. And most of them have worked somewhere else for a while now, just decided they want to volunteer for a little bit and continue on. The paramedic is a 1,200 plus hour. It's a degree. You can get an associate's degree out of it for most places now. So it's a pretty long. There's 4 of us that went through it 3 years ago. And they wanted to have it done in 12 months. It took us 15 just to cram all that in 12 months. It was a lot. But definitely a lot more advanced assessment. A lot of cardiac medications. We have to recognize rhythms, all the different cardiac rhythms, and give medications for them and treat based on their patient. We are, with all the additional, our protocols changed last year, so each level can do more than they used to be able to do. And it is more of we treat in the field now. It used to be get them in the ambulance, get them to the hospital as quick as you can. Now it's we're treating them in the field, and then the lights and siren transports are very rare for us now because we can stabilize them in the field. If we can't and they're very sick, we will go lights and siren to the hospital.
Once you start, must you complete the run?
It depends. You'll see I have a breakdown of our calls. We don't transport everybody, obviously. Some people call more of just to be evaluated, especially like car accidents. They want us to check them out. There's not much we can really check out, but we go give them peace of mind, talk with them on the risks and stuff. And so we don't transport everybody we get called to. So our training requirements, no matter which EMT, paramedic EMT, you have to complete 72 hours of continuing education every 2 years to maintain your license. So, I mean, even for the full-time staff, that's a lot, but for volunteers, that's a lot of hours.
Is that state or rules?
That's kind of national, but it's state. Our license is with the state of Vermont too, so we have to do this every 2 years. These are just some of the ways we do it in-house. We do quarterly competencies. And it's more of the skills that we don't use every day, but we make sure every quarter we go through those skills so we stay fresh on them. Our monthly squad training, except for November and December, we have squad training here once a month where the whole squad comes together and does stuff. We have guest speakers come in, we do hands-on stuff, it's kind of a breakup. Our annual training is November, December, where we go through all of our CPR pre-certification, everybody gets that again. Just reviewing all the policies, plans, kind of that stuff. We don't have the meetings because our meetings are usually the fourth Wednesday of the month, so November and December, obviously it falls on the holidays, so we just kind of do this annual training instead that crews do. Let's have our crew chief and our driver training programs. Some people think once you get your EMT, you can just go on the truck and run the call, and it's not the case. There's a lot that goes with that to become the crew chief that oversees the crew, talks to the hospital, does all the patient care, oversees the patient care. And obviously our driving program, because we don't just throw everybody behind the wheel to drive an ambulance as fast as they can. So we do have some pretty extensive training programs for those as well. And it can take, depending on how enthusiastic a person is and wants to get it done, if they're coming in extra shifts, they can get it done probably 6 months or so, but it can take up to a year to get a person through each one of these. So it also takes some time.
In your monthly squad training, how many hours is it a day that they come in?
For the squad training?
Right.
It's, usually we do an hour to 2 hours for the monthly squad trainings, depending on, if we have a business meeting, it's usually an hour training. If we don't have a business meeting, we'll try to do a 2-hour training. And then obviously each crew also does trainings. If they don't have calls and in the night shifts, they come in and they do rig check, they eat dinner, they try to do an hour training. If they get calls, it kind of throws that off. So probationary packets, every member that comes in has 6-month probation. They go through a packet whether they're certified or not. If they already have an EMT or an AMT license, then we just verify their skills and make sure they understand what we're looking for and we know where they're at. So everybody goes through that too. And then obviously outside trainings, the district does case review once a month. You can go to that. You can go in and sit in AMT or EMT classes to get some of your credits. And then we have a monthly paramedic district training too that we all have to attend. So there's different ways they get those. So we try to help them out as much as we can to get those hours in, but it's a lot to have to do on your own outside of here. So instead when we're not on EMS calls, we're not just sitting around. So the career members, besides me, there's 4. They all have like probably 2 roles apiece. They're responsible. I have somebody who's responsible for all the training stuff, so she makes sure everybody has their current driver's license, EMT license, all that's up to date. We make sure we have copies of it because we've had people think that they've had it and they haven't, so we make sure we have copies of all of that. Outreach, you can see a list, a bunch of our outreach events. Our big one's Family Fun and Safety Night that we do in May, right around this week, kind of our open house. Career Day at the schools. They just started mock crash last year, so we were involved in that. Other events. We have one person who does the car seat safety checks now, so we can help with those. The new program we started was a VNA referral program, so if we go to somebody multiple times and we feel that they could get assistance from VNA, we can make a referral. We have them sign a form and refer them to VNA so they can get the assistance that they need, so that we may not be going there all the time for them anymore. CPR classes. We also have an engineer who's responsible for all supplies, uniforms. They're kind of responsible for our trucks. Obviously, we have DPW who does all our maintenance, but if something happens, we notify that person, and they're the one who's in contact with DPW so they can follow up. Infection control, making sure we have all the stuff we need to stay safe from any infection diseases. CPR training coordinator, our privacy HIPAA officer we have to make sure that we're in compliance with all those regulations, and then our siren administrator, which isn't actually the siren on the ambulance, it's our run reports that we do, they're online. It's a web-based system, so it's the person who kind of stays up and administers that and gets all of the updates from the state and stuff. So, daily tasks, like I said, rig check, that's day shift, night shift, both shifts do that to make sure their supplies and equipment is ready. Building cleaning, we do all of our own cleaning here. The only thing we have somebody come in is once a year to do the carpets and floors. So the rest of it is ours. We do like a monthly chores list as well, so we do a little more deep cleaning and stuff. Deep clean the ambulances once a month, where everything gets pulled out, washed down, and stuff. Data entry, call review, our siren reports, we go through and make sure things are entered correctly, that we have all the data before it gets submitted for billing, so nothing gets kicked back. And then training. Each crew is doing training and stuff when they're on calls too. So it keeps pretty busy. There can be days where we don't have any calls, there can be days where we don't see the station for the full shift. So it really varies, but.
Now, your billing is done by a third party?
Yes.
And your recovery rate, I don't remember what the percentage was.
I think overall, with non-insured patients and everything, was in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think based on insurance was high 90s. So last I knew it looked. But yeah. So. In our standby events, we do a bunch of standbys. People request us to be there. So we get a second crew. Not the duty crew to go do those.
Do you charge those?
Not if it's. Looking at most of those. Most of those we do. If they're an agency that makes money actually triathlon, we don't because it's a town. So we go and do it. If it's an agency like the Pond Hockey that comes in and obviously they make money, then we do charge them. So because our ambulance sits down there running all day too, and a bunch of people. So. Our call stats, we base everything off calendar year, not fiscal year, so I just pulled 2014, we ended with 1,149 total requests for EMS. We track everything, including calls that are turned over, so if we're on a call and another call comes in, we track that as well. So I know that we turned over 62 calls while we were already on a call last year. We provided 254 mutual aid calls, so that was other agencies that were either out on a call or like a car accident they needed a second ambulance for. We go and we back them up. So out of the 1,149, we did 775 transports, and you can see 312 non-transports. So obviously everybody who calls us doesn't even necessarily want to go to the hospital, they just want us to check them out. Or car crashes, somebody else will call, when we get there and everybody's like, no, we're fine, no injuries. And so we record all of those. Our breakdown of our basic life support calls and advanced life support calls. Those, just because we have a paramedic on the ambulance doesn't mean we can bill the advanced life support. We have to actually do something that's at that advanced level, and it needs to be warranted for us to get that payment through. So you can kind of see the breakdown. We can still do more advanced calls, but
What's the difference?
it's.
Well, we understand the financial difference. You get more
Yeah.
money for the ALS than you do for the BLS.
Yeah.
But what?
It's assessment.
What's the
It's
actual
if you have a crew that's just EMTs, you'll only be able to bill at the EMT level because they don't have that advanced assessment. If you go for a chest pain, most likely you're going to do an advanced assessment to find out if that's cardiac related or not. That you can bill for. Some of the medications we give, some of the procedures we do. So it just really depends on what we do and what's needed for the patient.
So if you just had EMTs aboard and the guy was suffering from chest pain, so you couldn't put on the reason is because I was actually at a meeting the other night and a fellow had chest pains and your folks came.
Oh, really?
And I was impressed because they put the put the things, they did the readout, and the fellow analyzed it, and the decision was made to transport him. But I was impressed at it was the same level of care that I would have gotten if I, were in the doctor's office and they were attaching the leads.
And as with the paramedics, we can read that script that's printed out. We can tell you from those. I mean, there's obviously, we're not cardiologists, so there's some stuff we'll send to the hospital. We can transmit to the hospital, so they'll get that before we can get there.
So my question is, obviously the fellow was a paramedic, and if there wasn't, if it was just a crew of EMTs, would you transport him to the ER under those circumstances?
Yes.
Okay.
Most likely they would call. We actually don't go out the door without at least an advanced EMT on the truck. Since we're a paramedic level service, we feel we need to at least provide the advanced EMT service. So ours won't go without EMTs. Some services do. We do provide intercepts to militants sometimes because they will have an EMT crew that they don't see and find out we need help. We need somebody who can do a little more advanced. They'll call us for either AMT or paramedic, depending on what they need.
Would that end up in your mutual aid
Yes.
numbers?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, many of our intercepts and stuff would go under that. So yeah. And our EMTs, they can put all those leads on and stuff, and they just have to transmit it to the hospital, and then the hospital gets it and can read it and say. With the paramedics, and the same with the advanced EMTs. The paramedics, we can print that out and we can read it. And we may transmit it if it's something we're still not even sure. I mean, there's so much with the cardiac rhythms that we may transmit it for a doctor to look at and then call and say, what would you like us to do? This is what I'm thinking. What do you think?
So if, just make sure I said, if I know you go with advanced EMTs, but if there was by chance you couldn't, so you just went with the regular EMTs, and you had that same scenario, you would still not be able to bill at the advanced life support even though you're kind of providing that? Is that what you said?
If we call for an intercept and someone came in, say Milton provided us with an AMT for certain North, but we could then bill at that rate because that was provided, and then they would probably bill us for an intercept fee because they provided that. So because if we do a paramedic intercept for somebody, they can bill at a higher rate, and then we just bill them because it's what's provided on that call, whether it's your people that did it or you called someone else to do. So there's a lot that goes into our billing rates and what you can charge and when you can charge it and everything. But
Now, is St. Mike's training at a higher level than yours? And if it is, do you participate with them? Same.
Yeah, they have one paramedic right now. They just started the paramedic service this year. So they have the same level. They don't have as much coverage as we do for paramedics, but they do have a lot of daytime. And we do train. The paramedics get together once a month and we train together. So. And then I just put, you can see what our call volume has increased in 10 years from 918 to 1149. So obviously it's going up each year. And it can vary. We've had some years that have been high, and then the next year might be a little bit lower instead of going up. But they've stayed pretty consistent, increasing each year. So.
Do you think that it's just population that's causing that?
Population hasn't increased.
Yeah.
So what do you attribute that to?
I don't know if more people are calling. I mean, we do get a call, like the car accidents. Somebody sees somebody go off the road, they call 911. They may just go off the road, drive right back on. So that still generates a call for us, even if there's not a patient. I think some of our intercepts have increased, some of that stuff too. So, and I think people are just calling more, and maybe calling for stuff they may have driven themselves to the hospital before, and now they're realizing that it's something we might.
So you don't necessarily see it as the population's getting older and sicker.
Could be. I don't know. Okay. I mean, our calls vary so much. Actually, I could run a report and find out what our median ages and stuff too. I haven't done that in a while, but just see. And this is just a bunch of our medications. Most of the ones in there are a lot of the paramedic ones, and I can show you. I've got some of our stuff out to show you, like all the different medications we have to know, and we have to know everything about those medications. And we could give the right medication to the right patient, and they can still have a reaction to it, and then we need to be able to deal with that. these are people's lives we're dealing with in the back of the ambulance, and it's in the back of the ambulance. We don't have everything they have at the hospital. We don't have all the hands they have at the hospital. We're out in the field doing this and treating them the best we can.
Are you going to go into how they're physically controlled later?
How they what?
How they're physically controlled?
The meds? Most of our medications are just kept in the truck. They're not controlled. The controlled substances, I can show you in our ambulance too. We have what we call our NARC box. It's a locked box that's drilled into the ambulance that each paramedic has their own code for. So I can track to see who went in that box, when they took stuff out, and then if we use a medication on the call, we change that at the hospital. And if we say we drop a whole vial of medication, we don't use all of it, we have to waste the rest of that in front of a nurse or another paramedic, and they have to sign off a witness. And then that whole box gets returned to the hospital, we get a new box. So the controlled substances the hospital is definitely helping us with, so we're not keeping those here on site. We have one box in each ambulance, it's locked all the time, it's checked every day, and we have to log that we've checked it and who's checked it. So those are definitely controlled. The other ones, they're not controlled substances, so they're not locked up. That's pretty much what I have in the PowerPoint, but if you guys want to look at some of our stuff, or have any other questions, or...
So you put something over there.
So these are actually cardiac monitors we just purchased. I'm sure you guys saw it in the warrant.
Yeah.
The ones that we had one was bought in 2007, and I think the other ones were 2009, 2010. These are smaller than what we used to have, so it's a lot lighter, especially if we have to take this on an intercept. We're taking this bag usually with us on an intercept. We're taking this with us on an intercept, so it's a lot to carry. But these are pretty much our medications. These medications here are kind of what an EMT can give in this one. And actually now they can give Narcan for the drug overdose and stuff. Is something they just added because it's easy to give. They give it in spray in the nose. So that's something they added, the EMTs. The rest of these medications, you get into the advanced EMT level. D15 for diabetics with low blood sugar. So you give them sugar in the vein pretty much. And they wake up pretty quickly. All of these here and here are all of our paramedic medications. So as you go up, we do all of these medications.
Good to see you.
What they do, contraindications, everything on these medications. How to give them, when to give them, when not to give them.
How often do we replace that monitor?
It's more of kind of a technology thing. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the monitors still work, but
Yeah.
yeah, all the technology increased. This is kind of, when you saw them put all the sticky patches on them, this is what we're reading. This is all the different, of the heart. All those patches take a different view, and this is kind of what gives
So
us
that's
some
just
of the
left over
data.
from the last guy had a
This is-
72 heart rate.
This is
and-
actually this hyperrhythm generator, so it's just plugged into the
Oh, just
computer. and it
just doing random stuff?
Yeah, it does whatever. I can push a button and make it change. So, because that's what we use, like when we go through our code drills, we can change the rhythm, and the paramedics have to say which rhythm it is. And then based on that, what do we give for medications, or what do we do for that?
So is that tied into the hospital?
We can transmit. Once we take this 12-lead picture,
Yeah.
we can transmit it to the hospital.
Okay.
They get it via fax, and then the docs can look at it.
Standalone, as is, not hooked to anything.
No, right, well, it's wireless. We have
is
Wi-Fi in
right.
the ambulance, which we just started, the other monitor is on our ambulance. They started using it last night. They didn't have any calls yet. So we're kind of in that phase of we have both monitors on the truck for a bit until people really get used to this one, and then we'll ship the old ones back because they were part of trade-in. And then this will be it.
I want to be mindful of the time because
Yeah, I know.
we're across the way. You want to show them maybe an ambulance?
Yeah, if they want to. I can go out, see if we can get out
So
there.
an ambulance is on the capital plan to be replaced very soon.
Yeah. Our newest ambulance, so Rescue 1, and that's in service most days, all nights and most days. And then after the 4 years, it gets bumped to Rescue 2, and then it's in service Tuesday day, Thursday day, and Sunday day. So it runs up most of the mileage for the first 4 years, goes into the backup truck, and then we'll eventually get it replaced out. But in this, we actually got, Police Cities and Towns has a partial matching grant. We got $5,000 towards a $15,000 stretcher. But this thing goes up and down with buttons, so we're not lifting patients anymore. It's rated up to 700 pounds. So I mean, getting people out of the houses is still difficult some, and we have these, which can go at different levels, so it helps if you have a patient who's a little bigger, it helps kind of keep them in more. But our mattresses really aren't that wide.
Oh, hey, that's 15 grand right there.
so it pretty much just gets switched out. That stretcher really doesn't get used anymore. This one goes from ambulance to ambulance. So that's the one we have that going on.
But that one does go if both the left.
It rarely now. We don't really have enough people in town to take a second call, but it can. I have done it before. If I was here, not on the ambulance, and we had people in town that could jump a call, and they knew I was here, they may call me on the radio and say, "Can you go?" And they'll meet me here, and we'll go from here. But it doesn't happen very often anymore. We just don't have the staff in during daytime, so yeah. Definitely day. Yeah, we've actually found I think between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. is kind of our highest call volume. So definitely daytime.
Now, are these emergencies? Are they? Haven't been feeling well.
It can be, yeah. I mean, it can vary. Like I was telling them earlier, it's people drive off the road in the winter. Somebody driving by calls 911. They're not injured. They didn't call, and we show up on scene. Obviously, they're fine. They don't need us, but that is a call for us. So yeah, it definitely varies. But
And what are these rigs behind us?
those are tech.
Okay.
Yeah, they're still using some of our space. So
Behind the cameras,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, you can explain those.
Yeah, some of these normally sit outside, but it's winter, so we put them in, so it's a little bit more user friendly. That's a snow machine that was donated to us from one of the local snowmobile clubs, so it kind of gives us a better response during the winter time. And then we have a tracked ATV in here also for the winter time. So, and some of the storage in here is also some of the logistical supplies for the state team that we're part of. So all our tents, our heating units, and our air conditioning units are also inside of this. So otherwise, these things live outside.
So a power cut is on the wish list, right? A second one?
Yeah, I mean, eventually we'd like that way. It can rotate like the ambulance is doing, not be used all the time.
Right.
Can we look in?
So we were organized in 1988, officially in 1989. That was after a series of accidents on Lake Champlain and Mounts Bay where 4 people lost their lives. We started out as a water rescue team and we kind of blossomed from there. We're a separate entity within ColShowcaseRescue. Follow Colchester chain of command, and my boss is Amy, obviously. We have a very short personnel tree here. It's the rescue chief, myself, and then 3 squad officers, and 7 members are assigned under each squad officer. We have a total of 25 people, with the team doctor makes 26 for us right now.
Who's your team doctor?
Aaron Ryder from, he used to be from Colchester Family Practice. He's out in South Burlington now. And we're in the process of trying to grab a second doc who does work over here next door. They're helpful to us. They cut costs down on physicals and lots of other things that we do. Again, our training requirements are a minimum of 12 per year. There's 24 training sessions in a calendar year, and these are just squad or team trainings that we do. Each one is somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. Usually one night a week and then one weekend day a month. All sorts of mandatory trainings that the people have to have prior to coming on and then once they're on the team. And these mandatories are set by OSHA for a lot of the things that we do, so we can't get around some things. We are mainly, our foundation is a water rescue team because of the 27 miles of shoreline that we have. We have our three boundaries are water, the Lamoille River, the Winooski River, and Mounts Bay. So back in 2005, we came into compliance with NFPA and OSHA on some of our swimming and diver things that we do. So every person on our team has to take a portion of this test. All our divers have to take this test. This is an annual proficiency test. We are 1 of 2 agencies in the state that do this. And the reason for that is it limits our liability, it keeps people proficient. We know kind of what we have for folks working around the water. Our dive team is comprised of 12 divers. They're all certified at the public safety level, which is an advanced certification that they get certified at either by a company coming into Vermont and teaching it, or we ship them out of state. Again, this is, I tried to get this to play, but I'm having difficulty with it. This is one of our pool sessions where we basically tangle people up in a whole bunch of fish netting and a device called the lobster cage, and they have to get out of it, and they're completely blacked out. And again, it's a composite building drill for them, because most of the things that we do diving is black water. We really can't see anything. Some of the other requirements for people who happen to come on the team as a member, there's a variety of them, but these are the classes that they will be required to take if they stay with us. And these are the levels of, the hourly levels of training that each class consumes. So even though they take 6 or 12 hours of training on a team side during the month, they also have to take these classes, which are certifications that they have to have in order for us to do what we do. We also have 3 search managers on the team, which are it's a national certified class, which you're required to have if you're going to manage lost people searches, which we have about 3 a year in Colchester. In 2000, well, it actually started in about 2002, but in 2005, the 13 municipalities in the state reached out to each other, I guess, as a stakeholders group, and they formed a pretty ragtag urban search and rescue team. And since then, the state has tried to organize that, and it is becoming very organized as we speak. And it's centered around the 2 kind of host agencies or foundation agencies, which was Hartford Fire Department and our agency, because we were issued the majority of the Homeland Security dollars and the equipment that the state was doling out, because both our agencies were already doing some type of technical rescue in the state. So the nice thing with this is now that we share that with 11 other stakeholders across the state, and they're all geographically located so that we don't necessarily have to run down toward Hartford or down toward Rutland any longer for a lot of these calls, because there's other agencies in those areas now that can take care of it. These other 13 or these other 11 agencies, we all serve as strike teams, and we all have about the same amount of equipment. Hartford and us obviously have a larger amount, but all the 11 agencies have a baseline of equipment that they can respond to, and if they need more assistance, then we can either send out another strike team, or we can roll out more robust portion of this state team that has been formed. 50 calls a year. You folks have seen the statistics on where we go and how we go. We're designated as a task force under the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, which means we get funded by them for a lot of our equipment. And we are a state team under the Department of Public Safety when we're deployed by them as such, and that allows us to get reimbursed for personnel or equipment or anything that we do. And then we range in calls from lost hikers to body recoveries to all sorts of things. Pretty nasty body recoveries from the rivers that we have. Some of the craziness that we go to in some of these remote gorges where people get stuck. All sorts of things that we do. But anyhow, I was trying to make that quick for you, so we didn't spend a whole lot of time over here since Amy took it all.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
She's your boss.
I'm not complaining. No, all good. You know, if you guys have questions, we can do it here, or if you want to take a quick trip over, we can run over to the station and got some of the equipment laid out for you. You can take a look at it. Or
Like, can you just talk a little bit more? You do bring in a lot of grants and donations in support of tech rescue.
yeah, I mean, the biggest donation we got obviously was the building to house some of the equipment. You know, and that donation was probably somewhere around $150,000 or $160,000. It'd be either funds or in-kind contributions for the town for that, which was great. We brought in about $50,000 in Homeland Security dollars this past fiscal year, and some of those dollars are starting to dry up a little bit, and we're trying to funnel those dollars in a more constructive manner so that I don't want to say there's been a waste, but was almost like the cart got put before the horse on a lot of this Homeland Security dollars when they were doled out. So we try to back up a little bit and make this a little bit of a better system as far as the way the money's spent coming in from the federal government to the state side. And I think part of it is with this formation of this better organized state team where we can kind of get our hands around it a little bit. There was a lot of equipment. I think it was like $7.7 million in money that was spent out for urban search and rescue equipment across the state. That's a pretty high number when you think about it. And I think we're starting to see where it went, how it was spent, and whether there's a better way of doing it. I'm not saying that those funds aren't, the stuff that's out there now, what wasn't good money spent, but I think we need to refine that a little bit and truly make it a better system than what it is.
And Mike just recently took the department through a inventory of all your equipment, right?
Yeah, there was the state doled out a little more than $60,000 in software for this state entity. And, we did a lot of research on it, and we found this company called Higgins Corporation that produces a product called Salamander. It's being used by 15 of the search and rescue teams out in the Midwest, and a couple of the FEMA districts, I think, or the FEMA regions are looking at it. We jumped on with it. We thought it would meet our needs. So we actually purchased it back in April. We got it up and running somewhere around July. And we just barely finished our inventory of everything we own in-house, which is kind of nice. So for once we've got a complete inventory. But I was telling Don that we had an Excel spreadsheet inventory that went back to 1998 when we started keeping records, and we were able to match everything up over the last 3 weeks. The thing we're missing is a couple Milwaukee saw batteries from 1998 or 99. So my guess is we've used those, and those are in the trash somewhere. So yeah, it's good to have that system, but we were pretty tight, on the strings over here as far as keeping track of things. But what's nice with it, it's in the cloud. You can log in from any computer. I can look and see as an administrator, or Mike Whitey can, what the other 13 agencies have for equipment. And we've downloaded Hartford and Burlington and ours, and we're soon going to be doing Rutland and St. Johnsbury and Brattleboro and some of these other agencies, South Burlington, to upload all that equipment, see what we got, see where the money's been spent, see if we need to spend any more money on it. If not, then those funds will get diverted someplace else. So I think for over the long haul, this is going to be well worth it. It ties into the state's disaster database, Disasterland, with an IP address, so we can hook up to that, and they can see what we're doing on the scene, real time, through the computers that we hook up. So it's kind of twofold. It's inventory, it's credentialing of members, so we'll be able to tell what the credentials are, who the members are. They get issued tags. Everybody across the state that's represented in this system will have it. And the state's been slow on doing credentialing across the board with volunteers and career people. So we took it upon ourselves to start doing this with the hopes that they'll jump onto it at some point. So emergency management's kind of excited about it. They're up for accreditation or reaccreditation in February for the National Emergency Management Accreditation Program, and they wanted us to come in and talk a little bit about what we've done. And then when I showed them this, they were like, they're wiping the sweat off their eyebrows that we had this and that we were so far along with it. So it'll be good for them as well. So
the other thing is, even though Mike's retired from Colchester PD, he's still putting in some part-time hours there. And he has updated our emergency operations plan. And in March, he is coordinating a mock scenario, a tabletop exercise, and he's pulling together all the emergency responders in town. Aaron and I will be involved. Brian will be involved.
Yeah, we haven't had any type of a real tabletop exercise for about 15 years, so the town was lagging behind on the emergency operations plan. It needed to be updated, which we put window dressing on it to get us through the mitigation deadline, which was last June or something. So in case we had a declaration, you'd get additional funds. So I've kind of been whittling away a little bit on it just to continue working on it. We found a whole bunch of things that we still need to do, but we'll do the tabletop in March, and hopefully that'll lead into a full-scale exercise that the state's going to do in 2016 statewide. So hopefully we'll do the tabletop, figure out what our deficiencies are, what we need to do, correct them, and then roll it right into full-scale exercise with the state in 2016 if the town wants to join in, which I think would be a smart thing. Yeah, it's been fun doing it. It's good.
So we're very appreciative of the hours that he's spending here, as well as all the different volunteers and folks. It's an amazing cadre of volunteers that help keep these services going.
Yes, thank you all for your service.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Do you want to do a quick trip?
Yeah, I'll do a
Because
quick
we
trip
need
over if
to.
you'd like. I know you do.
This
This is the building that, we were able to raise the funding for, and the select board and the town provided the additional funds to put it up. So we're pretty fortunate to have such a nice facility, but feel free to look around. I've opened some of the compartments on some of the vehicles, but this is the water rescue dive truck that replaced the old ambulance style vehicle that we're working in colder environments.
It's gonna be more than that.
It's all costing.
Like the Winooski River, just
Yeah.
like a month ago, right?
Yeah, that was a pretty trying call. And the folks that were working in the car, Lamoille River, soon came to realize that they were lacking on that call up there, trying to recover the people. It was cold. They had a miserable time. We had a miserable time. We actually used one of our shelters that we have from the state. We set that up and introduced heat in it to keep the state police divers warm, as well as our folks that were working that. It was a pretty nasty time of year. But feel free to walk around, ask questions. Feel free to open doors.
You find that you still have enough space, Mike?
Yeah, it's fine. What I would really like is for the state to grab that trailer and put it back into their inventory at some point. I don't know if that would happen, but that would be a good thing, since most of the equipment's for a state type response. But
You could pick it up somewhere else if you.
yeah, I just don't know if they have a place to keep it either, but it would be nice for them to start to take some ownership as far as the equipment and whatnot. And that's kind of what we're moving toward with this state team. It'd be designed pretty much around like what the state hazardous materials team is. Yeah, and that's been a very, very
So, Mark,
good
they're
program.
trying-
That thing's
Right.
tried and true, and the individual members from the community still
I know you're
work at
interested
it and
if they're
whatnot,
trying
but,
to team up with the state in terms of helping with the apparatus. And
Yeah, and we're saying is, Nadine asked if we have ample space to check. Yeah, we have ample space, but it would be nice if we could find, the state to take the trailer off our hands, and since most of it's Homeland Security funded equipment and whatnot, but I don't know if that would happen.
So when you're looking at a lot of this apparatus, much of it was funded by
Homeland
Homeland
Security.
Security funding,
Correct.
correct?
Yep, and we were able to replace a lot of stuff that would have normally been replaced through your budget process. Recently replaced a boat trailer, replaced a 1989 homemade boat trailer that we had with this one here. So that was a savings for us. But again, it gets used on state responses, so they saw the need. It was nice that it got replaced, but it was less money that had to come out of our, out of the taxpayer-based budget. So the trailer on the side, that's the large USAR trailer. You folks are welcome to go inside if you want. It's not the easiest to get in.